Hello everyone! So next week I am going to be participating in the Early Access Streamer event for War of the Spark, courtesy of Wizards of the Coast. They will be giving me a fully stocked account for that occasion, so thank you very much to them. In preparation for that, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I'm going to make a few videos showing decks that I am excited to play and what new cards I plan to use them for that event. So, this first deck should not be a surprise to anyone, since I always end up playing stuff like this, and I think it also got quite a few good tools from the new set. This is standard Sultai Midrange, we have Explore creatures, we have removal, and we've got powerful endgame threats in Hydroid Krasis and Vivian Reed. But we're playing a few new cards. So first up is Leyline Prowler. Leyline Prowler is interesting to me because I think this card is not getting quite as much hype as it probably should be. It's not as flashy as the big storyline cards or the Planeswalkers, but Lifelink Death Touch is exactly the abilities that a defensive midrange deck wants to see on a creature, and being able to tap for mana is not nothing. In particular, I've found that the best draws out of Sultai midrange were when I went turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Llanowar Elves, turn 3 Vivian Reed. And in that sense, Leyline Prowler actually gives us the ability to do that more consistently with turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Prowler, turn 3 Vivian. I think that should be quite powerful, and I'm excited to see how it actually works out. Hopefully it will present an extra defensive body to kind of stuff the aggressive decks that were trying to run us over, while at the same time accelerating us to our very powerful late-game cards. So, secondly, we have a new Planeswalker, and another version of one of my favorites is Vivian. So, this is probably the least reliable and most likely to get cut of the new cards that I'm testing, and that's because, simply put, her -2's odds of getting us a card are just too low. Even if you have 30 creatures in your deck, you're only about 90% to hit something off of her -2, and that's really unfortunate given that we have fewer hits than that. Still, her -2 is going to hit most of the time, so right there that's card advantage, and I'm perfectly happy with her hitting just most of the time, as long as she's doing something else, and I think she's doing enough otherwise. Her static ability that grants creatures flash is excellent in this deck, whether it's surprise growing our Wild Growth Walker with one of the Explore creatures, or if it's surprise killing something with a Ravenous Chupacabra, or surprise playing a Leyline Prowler, which surprise Death Touch blockers are pretty annoying for most people. And of course, against control decks, being able to cast an end-of-turn Hydroid Krasis is just kinda gross, and would leave a lot of people really unhappy. So, I think the Flash ability is quite good, and then the +1 is actually well suited in this deck as well. Reach is something we're very glad to have. This deck can struggle with the attackers out of the mono blue deck, because we simply don't have good ways to block a Tempest Djinn or something like that. But suddenly, if she's upticking on our creatures, we do have the ability to block that. And then Vigilance is great with creatures that can tap for mana, whether it's getting in damage with Llanowar Elves against a control deck and then tapping it, or Leyline Prowler being able to attack in a way that people don't really want to block, because it has Death Touch, and gaining us life, but then also threatening to tap for mana. So I think this card could be good, but this might not be the home for it, if only because our creature count is too low. And then finally, the big card, we have Liliana Dreadhorde General. So, this deck has previously played a varying amount of 6-drops. We played Vraska Relic Seeker for a long time, because she's quite good. And then Carnage Tyrant has been another popular choice. And that is actually why I think Liliana is going to be so good in this deck. Because her double Edict minus the Barter and Blood effect is really good against creatures that otherwise gave us a lot of trouble. In the past, if we were playing a black-green mirror and you were pretty far ahead and had better creatures, but the opponent played a Carnage Tyrant, most of the time you were just kind of sunk and you didn't have a good answer for it. You could try to, and if you tried to build up a big board to deal with it, they would just cast Find Finality, and then suddenly their Tyrant is even bigger, and you're just really out of the game. Liliana doesn't let that happen. She will downtick and kill the big hexproof monster, and suddenly you're sitting pretty. Her plus is fine. It makes zombies. That's totally okay for a Planeswalker Plus. And then her passive is really the card that sells me because it's good in all matchups. If you sit there and can just draw cards if your creatures get wrathed against control, you're perfectly happy. And in a creature mirror, suddenly trading becomes really attractive because you're drawing cards and they aren't. So that static ability is really good. And then finally, one thing I want to bring up, because you do not evaluate a Planeswalker off of their ultimate ability, but you should consider just how good that ultimate ability is. For example, Vraska Relic Seeker has an ultimate that usually wins the game when you do it, but is not guaranteed. If the opponent has a way to deal with all of your creatures, then putting them to 1 doesn't really matter, and so you're kind of in trouble, and you might have minus to a Planeswalker to not get anything done. However, it really doesn't matter what else is going on with the game if you can get off this Liliana's ultimate ability. It is just downright cataclysmic to lose all your permanents like that, and even if your board is otherwise clear, you're almost certainly going to be able to beat a control deck after you take them down to 1 land. So, this is my starting list here. I will probably play things and play around with things and change over the course of the day. There are other cards that I left out for now but might need to be included, like Midnight Reaper or something like that. But this is a pretty reasonable starting point, I think. Anyway, that's all for today. I would love it if you could subscribe and follow my Twitch link down below in preparation for the stream. And thank you for watching.